The story begins with the fact that one day, a girl who lost her memory wanted to find her home. Plus, she was considered missing for a few years, so there were a lot of ads on the streets about it. On these ads, there was her photograph, but for all that time, no one found her or recognized her, because she had few acquaintances and almost no friends. And on this day, something happened. It turns out that this girl walked along those streets and wanted to know where her home was, only she tried to hide her face so that they wouldn't recognize her and wouldn't tell anyone that she was found. She started asking passersby if they knew where this girl's house was. Only these people didn't know that this girl was the person on the missing list. She started asking if anyone knew about her or could tell something about her life. So she wanted to find out what she had forgotten because she lost her memory. Others noticed she was completely without shoes and looked suspicious. Also, they realized that if a girl asks where Cecilia lives, it means she came from out of town. But the girl did not want to waste time talking and once again asked just to answer the question. This behavior surprised the young man very much because she was very persistent and didn't want to waste time communicating with them. And yet, these guys said where Cecilia's house was. This place was on a huge mountain above the city and it was visible from anywhere in the city. And it was the only mansion, so it will be easy to find. Only the road to it can take half a day. They immediately warned about this. After she found out this information, she just pushed the guy and abruptly left. It was very ugly of her. And yet that guy tried to tell the girl that Cecilia had been dead for 5 years and she wouldn't find her there. But she didn't even listen to this, and behaved very ungratefully because they told her really useful information. After the conversation, they told her about it because it was unpleasant for them that she treated them this way. After all, they helped her. And then one of them, when she was already leaving, seemed to understand who this girl was. His friend asked why he was so surprised and what did he notice. The guy immediately told him that apparently this is Cecilia. Only it was hard to believe because why would she ask for herself, and especially where her house is located? She spent all day on the road to finally get to this mansion, because it was on a huge mountain, and it was hard to climb there without transport. When she already approached it, she realized that this was exactly the place, and decided that she would stay here because this place seemed very familiar to her. She came to the place where Cecilia lived. Only now she was not sure that Cecilia was her because she did not remember at all how this could happen. She only knew that the only person in this house is the butler, so she hopes that he will help her remember everything. Because if he doesn't recognize her, it means that this girl is not Cecilia, but just looks like her and has nothing to do with her. When she already went inside, she realized that there were no signs that someone lived here, and it betrayed a special atmosphere. The mansion was so huge, thereby giving the feeling of something powerful. And then she realized that if not for the promise she made to people in the past, she would burn everything around and return the magic stone. And wherever he hides, she will still find him, no matter what it costs her. But what kind of promise and stone it is will become known a little later. Suddenly a man comes up to her and starts to greet her. She thought there would be a butler here who takes care of the mansion. There's another important point. For some reason, this girl thinks like she's a guy, but maybe not as much is known about her as we would like. She perceives herself as a masculine person, although she is a girl, and this moment so far leaves many questions. Therefore, when she walked around the mansion, she saw that some door was open and decided to go in, because she hoped there would be someone who might recognize her. And she wasn't wrong. There really was some guy. And surprisingly, she remembered him and remembers who he is. Therefore, she was not afraid to approach him because she hoped that he would also be delighted with her appearance. His name is Kane. He noticed that someone was walking towards him, and he seems to understand who it is. He turns around and sees some girl coming, and he had very few options. Who could it be? So he was very surprised and delighted at her appearance. He could not believe his eyes because she was gone for so many years. Because of this, he even accidentally dropped some object. Although he didn't care at all, he wanted to hear something from her as soon as possible. And until the last, did not believe that she had returned because this simply cannot be. She saw his reaction and it was certainly expected. And from that moment, it became clear to her that she definitely came to the right place. Of course, that guy immediately ran up to her to hug her after all this time. It was most unexpected for him to realize what was happening, and he thought it was just a dream. After all, he had already lost hope that he would ever see her. It is possible to imagine what emotions they experienced, because it was a truly very significant event for the two of them. This guy was very happy, and said that he had been waiting for her all this time, and missed her very much, and did not stop believing that she would return someday. But at that moment, unlike him, the girl did not really want these hugs and tenderness. And even when he says that he was bored, she said that it is better to postpone these happy emotions, because it is now useless. But he did not understand why she said that, and thought that maybe she was not happy to see him, and said that first of all she should say something. Namely that one terrible situation happened and she lost her memory, so she doesn't remember anything. He certainly did not expect to hear this, and understood why she was not happy to meet him. This guy is a butler, and he has been in this position for a long time. So she understood that if he was a butler, then he knew everything about Cecilia and could tell something. But the first thing he wanted to know was if she remembered anything, and showed her different rooms and objects to see how poorly she remembers everything. When suddenly the girl began to say something inside herself and said like a guy that he pretended to be Cecilia and was afraid that the butler would declassify him. From that moment on, it's hard to understand if it's him or her. The whole butler sees exactly that girl in front of him, only that's who she really is. It's very hard to understand, and quickly want to know if this is a guy in the body of a girl, and why then she looks so much like the one that the butler is happy to see. Besides, she had thoughts. Since he waited for his mistress, it turns out that he can probably be trusted. After that, she told him that she understood what kind of person he was. He waited for her after so much time, so she decided to leave him and trust him. Then said that there is one more detail that should be explained to him. But he did not yet understand what she meant and what she could say so special. But she only wanted to ask something and find out what she was most interested in. She asked why, after all, he stayed and waited for his mistress all this time for so many years. After all, 5 years have passed, and everyone considered the girl long dead, and she could not understand what made him stay. After all, there must be some reason, and she did not believe that he had no personal affairs and no desire to leave. But for a long time he did not know what to answer her, and for a long time he thought how best to explain this. But everything turned out to be too uninteresting, and the reason was the most common. At least he did not name another reason, even if it was. The fact is that since he is a butler, he simply performed his duties and took care of the owner's apartment. The girl immediately guessed that maybe he had something to hide and he did not finish something. Therefore, she said that she would believe him. But unfortunately, she does not remember anything, and perhaps even is not the same mistress that he once knew, and asked if he considers her his mistress because it was very important for her to hear the answer to this question. The first thing he did was walk a little closer to her to say something. He said he would never leave her, and would do whatever she wanted for her. But he was too close. Because of this, she felt a little uncomfortable. After that, he congratulated her on her return and kissed her hand. Only now his behavior did not quite correspond to the butler. After they talked, they decided to go to the library, where all the information and history about the family was collected. The presence of a library and information in it indicates the strength and the influence of the family of the girl Cecilia in the empire. This place is truly breathtaking, because the Marinell family is a very famous family and has a lot of interesting things in its history. The girl decided to take some book and learn something. After all, it would not hurt to find out about the family to whose house she came. The butler saw that it was hard for the girl to reach the top shelf, and he decided to help her, and took out the right book. After that, he said that she could ask him for any help, and he would be happy to do it. She decided to ask if she has the right to read everything that is written here in these books, because for sure there may be written information that not everyone can know. The butler said that she has the right to take and read absolutely any book that is there. And after that, he told her in which corner what type of books are located, and briefly explained what is interesting here. It had never even seen such a large number of books in some house, because it seemed to it that it was impossible to read them in a lifetime, because there were too many. When suddenly she noticed something and asked what is there. She asked to be reminded of one place because it seemed interesting to her at first glance. This beautiful corner turned out to be a collection of teaching aids, but it was so beautiful, like everything around, that it immediately attracted her attention. When the butler had already told about everything, he suggested that she first take a break so that she could rest and adapt to this place. And then it will be possible to explore the territory further because it is actually huge. It will take more than one day to see everything. Except that no one except her knew that there was one more unfinished business to find the thief, and she wanted to quickly go and find him. Only strange. Where did she get that he is here? And is she really looking for a specific person, about which he has not yet told anyone? I wonder what he did or will do to her. Due to the fact that she behaves quite mysteriously, it is impossible to understand what he really thinks about and what he wants to achieve, because she somehow knows that somewhere nearby there is a thief and wants to find him. First, she planned to invite the nobles to get to know everyone and ask the butler, what is the probability that they will agree? Because now is a very difficult period for the empire. And because of the snow, it is difficult to get to the mansion. This means that most likely nothing will work out, and the girl was at an impasse. Because of all these problems, she felt tired and said she wanted to relax, and the butlers offered to take a bath. And besides, he prepared a bath for the girl in advance, and this surprised her very much. How could he predict everything and prepare in advance? Anyway, for her it was very nice, and of course she agreed. When they finally decided to go, the butler accidentally dropped the books he was holding, and apologized for it, said that his hand just slipped and he did not have time to hold all these books. Only now the girl knew that he did it for a reason. For some reason, she thought that this butler was hiding something, and it was no coincidence. She has yet to test him and make sure he can be trusted. After that, they went to another room as there was too much information and it wouldn't hurt to rest. In addition, the girl was very tired all day and dreamed of taking a bath. Hot tea was prepared for her and everything she needed to be comfortable there. The bath was just huge, hot water was filled into it, and the girl was able to enjoy the atmosphere in this rest. And she realized that the fatigue was finally disappearing, and she began to feel noticeably better. She felt like a princess at the moment, because everything was prepared for her to enjoy her stay in the mansion. She realized that the butler was useful. In addition, he shows with his whole appearance that he is in a good mood for her, and is happy to do anything for her that she needs. She had a feeling that he was a very smart and observant person, and even knows how to read minds, and does everything she can think of. This way he never ceases to amaze and delight her. Only now she wanted to make sure that he can tell something and trust him, because he can refuse to be not what he seems at first glance. But these can only be suspicions, and it is too early to draw any conclusions about him. You just need to observe and analyze his behavior. That's what she'll do. Besides, he said that he saw this decoration for the first time. Photos of Cecilia wearing jewelry. If someone wore a portrait, then this person considered the girl a dear person, and it looks like she was really for someone a very dear and close person who was greatly loved. And thanks to Kane, she will be able to learn about the people who were close to Cecilia. At that moment, someone knocked on her door and asked to enter. She never expected anyone to want to do this when she is resting and not ready to talk to someone. She managed to get ready and was ready to talk because she did not want to miss any useful information, which she could learn from him. After that, she asked how she could help him and why he came. It turns out he came to remove her tiredness. Only here's how he's going to do it. Sometimes she is surprised that the butler behaves freely enough. After all, they usually do not behave like this, and try to be as restrained as possible in relation to the mistress. But this one was not like that at all. He wanted to make her stay here as comfortable as possible. At some point he decided to do something without warning, and the girl asked what he was up to which he replied that, just take care of her, and she cannot worry about anything. He was also constantly interested in whether the temperature of the water in the bathroom was comfortable for her, and clarified a lot of other things to fix it if something happened. Because of this behavior, the girl wondered if all this was the responsibility of the butler, because he tries too much to do, to somehow please her and make her feel good. Although everything from the outside looks absolutely natural, and so far there is nothing to worry about. When he looked at her hair, he noticed that after so many years, the length of her hair remained the same, and nothing had changed. Everything looks like it's real. Time has stopped, and so many years have not passed since then. The girl asked if he remembers the length of her hair, to which he replied that he remembers absolutely everything connected with her, and if she wishes, she can ask him any question that interests her. She said that she heard that she was the crown prince's fiancé, and it turned out to be true, after which she asked what happened after her disappearance. That was what she was most interested in, because she wanted to know everything about that Cecilia. After her disappearance, the family involved was subjected to humiliation and torture, due to the fact that she was accused of being an alleged accomplice in the fact that the girl disappeared and was considered dead. This information certainly shocked her because she did not expect to hear such, but the butler tried to calm her down because in fact this matter is a moot point, and since she returned, then perhaps all these rumors and assumptions will be refuted. After that, she realized something very important. It turns out that this girl really is no more because she thought that Cecilia just disappeared somewhere. From that moment, things really changed, and she thought a lot of things. When suddenly the girl asked why the butler turned red on his face. He was actually just embarrassed seeing her like this for the first time. After that, she asked him to leave because today there is already enough information and help. After that, he asked to stay anyway, to which she said that she hates to repeat twice, so it's better for him to leave. Of course, he obeyed her and did not argue and insist on staying with her. At this time, he decided to go clean her room so that it was clean, and said if she needed anything, she could call him at any time. After the conversation, the girl thought a lot about something because she learned a lot of interesting and important things. And it turns out that all this is meaningless because she took the body of a woman who has no family, and perhaps she no longer exists, although perhaps this is for the best. When she thought about it, she could not even imagine what would happen to her now, and did not think that the danger at this moment was getting closer and closer, and it would not hurt to be more attentive. She thought it was the butler who just didn't want to leave, and was following her at the moment when in fact it was not the butler who actually approached her, but a completely different person who didn't wish her well. The big mistake was that the girl did not turn around and look who was coming up to her. She could assume that the butler could not disobey and stay against the order. There were only a few seconds left, and something really terrible would have happened. She noticed that something was wrong, and at the last moment decided to see who was silent, and slowly approached until she saw it. It was surely the villain she was looking for. But that's how he got into the mansion. Was he really at the same time with someone and the guards let him in? At some point, she noticed that this man's steps were not like those of a butler, so she quickly decided to put on some extra clothes and go to deal with this villain. The only thing she didn't understand was the reason he attacked her. He didn't even understand how she managed to notice him and protect herself, because she had very few chances. And then he realized that he didn't succeed. She didn't look like the one who was scared of him and acted very confident, despite the fact that she almost got hurt by him. Most of all, she wanted to know who he was and why he came here. But first you had to see his face because she must see what kind of guest came to her, and she decided to take off the fabric that covered his face. When she heard the news, she thought that the villain himself came to her, but who is this man? And why did he want to hurt the girl? She was not afraid, approached him, and began to ask why he was here and what he wanted to do. But the first thing he asked was if she was a sorceress, because everything that happened surprised him very much. He did not expect that she would turn out to be some kind of special, and be able to protect herself even at the most dangerous moment. Of course, she didn't tell him anything because he shouldn't have known too much. Otherwise, he could use it to his advantage. In addition, wizards can only do something with magic stones, and without them, they are powerless. Since she was without one, he himself knew the answer. They say that wizards cannot properly use their magic without a magic stone. But that person did not see this item anywhere on this girl. He didn't understand how she was able to use her abilities without anything, and didn't know how it was possible, because he had just seen everything with his own eyes, and was sure that she was a very unusual girl. Who knows how to use magic without any auxiliary elements? She did not want to see him surprised for a long time, and wanted to get down to business right away. But first, she ordered to put aside everything that could be dangerous and sharp. This is to make her feel safe and in control, because she did not know what to expect from him and how dangerous he is for her. Since she does not repeat herself, the last time she asked why he came here and what his purpose is. But he began to complain that his arm was badly damaged, and from this, it hurts a lot. The girl did not understand how he could have the courage to come here, and yet he cannot say a single word in her presence, as if he had lost his confidence. He began to think that it was possible that the information that Cecilia had returned was initially false, and should not be believed. When he lowered his head and pretended to regret something, the girl thought he was really bad, and asked if he really got sick or needed some help. But it turned out that it was not worth relaxing and trusting him, even when everything seems to be in order. She did not expect this from him at that moment, and did not know that she seemed so sly. At that moment she was just in shock and could not believe that he was just pretending. But in fact, he wanted to deceive her and hurt her even more. Meanwhile, the butler was walking around the grounds of the mansion when he noticed that there was a broken vase on the floor. The lady loved it very much, only now he did not understand what happened and why it was lying broken. It only meant that something happened, and he still doesn't even know who the girl is with now and what danger she might be in. And at this moment, it would not hurt to make sure that everything is all right with her, and quickly go look for her because every minute can be decisive. so there is no time to stand and do nothing. Only now he was in no hurry to go to her, and for some reason, she stood near this broken vase, as if it would somehow help, and he would understand something. He only thought about being very glad that she returned, and now he looks every day to see and be near her. And more for happiness, he does not need anything. After all, when he is near her and touches her, he experiences an incredible feeling. Only now he wants more to be closer to her. It is not enough for him to be just a butler, but for this, he will have to try and make a lot of effort. Suddenly, when he was standing on the balcony, he noticed something strange. He definitely saw some person in the yard, and did not understand that it had just happened because there could be no strangers on the territory of the palace. Meanwhile, the boy and the girl are in the same place, and such an act should surely be punished. This guy imagines that he has the right to do this, although he has already been caught and is not going to let go. At the moment when the girl approached him to somehow help, he acted very meanly. Only now he was very confident in himself, and did not understand whom he was going to harm, and what would happen to him for it. Although he suspects that she can protect herself, he does not even realize that she is a real dragon, and he will really regret what he did. After all, she does not forgive this. She could have done something with him a long time ago. He was lucky that she is still not as evil as she can be. In addition, he broke into her mansion and considered that he had the right to act so impudently, and hoped that she was an ordinary girl. And by this moment he had already done what he wanted and achieved his. Only everything turned out to be not as he planned. It seems that only he will suffer of the two, and he will know for the future that it would be impossible to attack seemingly defenseless girls. After all, they can be much stronger than it seems at first glance. If there is no guard after them, this means that they may not need it, and this should be feared even more. When the girl realized that this guy was in complete shock and did not understand where she had so much strength and skills, she approached him and decided to ask something. After all, did he really think that he could defeat the dragon with almost nothing with him? From the word dragon, he already wanted to run away as soon as possible and apologize for everything he did, because he understands that now he has no chance of being released. And at that moment, something unforeseen happens. The girl definitely could not expect this, and did not count on such an act. She notices that someone is coming toward them to protect her from uninvited guests who are trying to harm her and do something bad. When she realized what happened, she couldn't believe her eyes and see the guy who came to her rescue. He was very determined and literally in a second made sure that this villain was no more to her and she was not in any danger. She did not know this guy at all, and did not understand who he was. No one was originally supposed to let this villain into the yard. Either they were with him at the same time and let him in without problems, or they worked very poorly and let him through with their inattention. Later it turned out that there are no guards in this house, and it has not been guarded at all for a long time, so everyone could get in here. Only there is one problem. The villain is no more, but the girl did not have time to find out something about him, and was very angry with her savior, despite the fact that he saved her. And then she asked if he was an accomplice or not. But he didn't like this question very much. He was very hurt to hear this. She just didn't know who to believe anymore, and who is who. It's still hard to understand. After all, she is not obliged to believe him, and she wanted to know exactly who this guy is. After all, she had not seen him before and was not familiar with him. At that moment, the butler runs in and asks what happened to the girl, because he heard that something strange was happening. The first thing the butler saw was the guy who protected his mistress and some villain. He was very sorry because in the place of this guy who saved her, he wanted to be. After all, he wanted to seem the best and most useful for her. Only now he did not have time to. Meanwhile, this unknown guy put a hood over his head to hide his face, and said that he should already go, but no one knows anything about him so far. And why he helped is also unclear, and even more so, it was interesting how he realized that the girl needed such help. He was either somewhere nearby, or he knew about everything that happens to her every minute. The butler saw her trying to stop him and run after him, but decided to stop her because it was pointless. After that, he said that she urgently needs medical help. Now she can't do without it. But the only thing that bothered her was that she missed him, and now there's no way to find him, because she doesn't know where he went and where to look for him. But the butler only insisted on helping her quickly, and thought of nothing else. At that time he began to dislike that stranger a little because he envied how he saved the girl. But he didn't have time to do it himself. She kept talking about how everything was fine with her, and nothing terrible happened. All she had to do was figure it all out, and until she did, she would not calm down. The hardest thing for her is solving some riddles that could be solved just about, and everything didn't go according to plan. She even had suspicions that this guy deliberately neutralized the enemy, so that the villain could not tell the girl anything. Because maybe that stranger thought that the villain would tell her something that she did not need to know. But the butler looked at all this, and did not understand why she needed to understand this. After all, nothing can be found out, and the maximum that she can do is start an investigation tomorrow. The girl had the idea that this villain who tried to attack her did not want to harm her at all, and perhaps one should have expected danger from a completely different person. And it turns out that they had different goals, and she wanted to know this because it is very important. The most surprising thing is that the man looked too familiar and she seemed to remember him. So it was necessary to remember who he was and where he could be found. The next day she decided to ask the butler everything he knows. But he said that at that moment he was thinking only of her. Therefore he didn't have time to see the faces of those two guys at all. But he also noticed that they seemed quite familiar. When suddenly he notices that there are no marks on her face and everything has healed, it was really amazing. And she reminded him that she had already said that there was nothing to worry about, and everything was in order. The butler began to assume that she possesses magic, but the girl decided to say that she just drank a special healing agent. This was to make sure the butler was wrong about her skills and magic power. And it seems that he believed, because he could not know too much about her. When suddenly they heard that someone was walking toward them, and they definitely heard someone's steps. They immediately looked in that direction, and realized that they really were not mistaken. Only the girl didn't know who it was at all, and perhaps the butler will recognize him. Some man said hello and said that they had not seen each other for a long time. It was Mr. Becker. Apparently they knew each other and began to greet because they had not seen each other for a long time, and asked how each other was doing. The girl decided to draw attention to herself and asked who came to them, but it seems that this man knew her, although perhaps because she looked like his friend. That is, the girl who lived here. He addressed her as Cecilia and said he didn't think he would see her again, that the rumors were true and she really came back after so many years. She was very sorry that she did not remember him at all, and did not understand who he was, but she understood that this was a familiar person. It turns out that this man and his wife own a grocery store, only she didn't remember this either, and it was hard to remember something, and pretended to understand everything, and really knows who he is. After that he was delighted, because he was almost upset that she forgot him. After that the girl asked why he came to her. It turns out that now they are preparing for the spring festival, and he needs help. Besides, he said it would be nice if they could see the villagers. It turns out that the crown prince returns to the capital with a victory for his empire, and the whole village is already busy preparing for this event, because it will be something incredible and beautiful. It was amazing that absolutely all people are busy preparing for such a holiday, and it was clear that this is a really significant event, and they are happy to meet the prince, who defeated the neighboring empire, and deserves such a meeting in the form of a festival. In addition, it was a chance to see absolutely all the people for her. So she said that she would be very glad to be there, and asked the butler what he thought about this. Although if he were against it, he would in any case agree, and will not refuse her. After all, if she wants it, he has no right to interfere with it. That man said it was a great idea and all the people would be very happy to see her at the event. Meanwhile, they decided to go straight away to help make the necessary preparations, and the man immediately asked people to pay attention to them, because he brought a very important person whom they would certainly be glad to see, and hoped that they didn't forget her, because she is a very respected person, and it will be inconvenient if people don't remember her. He said that Lady Cecilia had kindly agreed to help them with the preparations and would be present at the upcoming festival. For people, this was really amazing news, because they did not expect that they could ever see her, and at first, they could not believe that she was standing in front of them. They started to ask where she was disappearing all this time, and besides, after so many years she has not changed at all, and looks the same as she once was. At that moment she was very uncomfortable because she had all the attention of people, and they came too close. So I decided to see where the butler was, but I saw that he was busy and some girls began to approach him. After that, she realized that he definitely could not help her with anything, because he also got too much attention from the girls who liked him. In addition, for some reason he was not opposed to talking with them, and forgot about the need to control whether everything is in order with his mistress. then said that he would be back soon as he helped these two beautiful girls, and asked her not to go too far so that he could find her later. So she realized that she would have to walk alone, because at that moment he chose not her, but some strangers. Suddenly a girl comes up to her and takes her by the hand. Apparently she wanted to ask for something, and offered to go with them, because she saw how she was standing alone and did not know what to do and where to go. This girl said that she would tell and show everything, because she knows everything here and can help with something. But this was only an excuse for the lady to start helping them in washing clothes. When she already understood what she was dragged into, she could not believe what she was doing and what she agreed to. After all, she had no plans to come here and help in this way by washing things of strangers. Plus, she had a bad headache because of too much noise from everyone around talking about something. And these conversations were connected with her. She did not understand. Are people not tired of discussing this, and do not want to relax? How suddenly someone decided to ask her, is she looking forward to this event? Just like all of them. But the girl did not understand what she was asking. It turns out that she meant meeting with the crown prince, where the meeting of two lovers will take place, and everyone is looking forward to this moment. In addition, this prince went to the battlefield in order to forget that he misses his lady because he really wants to return home to her. And they ask her, isn't it wonderful because it's very romantic and it's interesting to watch? And the most interesting thing is that he will come just the same to her, because people are sure that soon she will become his girlfriend. When suddenly she got hurt, and that girl who was standing next to her noticed it. It just happened due to the fact that the mistress was not used to doing such work, and did not know that it was possible to get injured. Only it was not at all scary, because she knew that everything would pass soon, because everything heals very quickly for her. At this point, she was asked what she would do if her arm was left with a scar because they didn't know about the abilities and powers she had. The whole time will pass quite a bit, and it will not be visible at all that she scratched her finger, and decided to help and wind up the fabric in order to somehow help. It was very noble of them because they showed that they were glad to take care of their mistress. Even if they didn't know it wasn't necessary, she appreciated this act and help. So the girl who helped her said that she is not obliged to help them, so she cannot strain. But at this moment, the lady was very angry about the fact that there was too much noise around, and she really did not like it. Because she did not understand, is it really interesting for someone to endlessly discuss the same topic several times a day? Meanwhile, evening came and there was an incredibly beautiful atmosphere, and it was very beautiful to watch the sunset, and they began to have dinner. By this time, everything was already cooked, and a lot of food was put on the table, which was very hot and appetizing at first glance. That the butler helped with this cooking, and for this he then left to help someone. And after that, he said that where he found some monster that he did not expect to see at all. After all, these creatures appeared in the village instead of the usual rats, and everyone is already used to this. When they were discussing this, the butler noticed that the girl had something with her finger, and apparently she was injured. But she reminded him not to worry because she has special means for such unforeseen situations, and since then she has been forced to carry it with her all the time. The main thing is that the butler believes in it, because she still cannot tell him about magic. It turns out that some strange things have been happening lately, because usually such monsters are far from the village and never enter it. And sometimes the butler helps with this, because quite recently they began to go down more and more often to where people live. Only now the girl was too keen on dinner, and she skipped some moments and did not listen. The butler saw that she was very hungry and enjoyed her meal, so he offered her something else. Said that she can eat this too, because it should be very tasty. And of course she thanked, because everything was really very tasty. And at some point she nevertheless began to be interested in the topic of conversation, and asked if he drove this creature away and did he succeed. When she was suddenly told that it was not surprising since the butler could use magic, this information really surprised her, and asked if this was true, because she did not know that he was capable of such. He said it's true, only he can do simple things, he can't do anything complex yet. The man who invited them asked how he learned all this, because he looks like an ordinary butler. But in fact he has such talents. Besides, he is wasted, and one could earn a lot of money with his talents and abilities. But the butler said that he did not completely agree with this. The girl was convinced that although it is very difficult, anyone can master it if you know how to control the stone and on your own. The more she learns, the more she is surprised by these people and what they usually talk about. There's only one problem. Even though these creatures won't come back, there's been a lot of damage after them, and there's nothing you can do about it. In any case, the winter is already over, and soon there will be an opportunity to fix everything, so do not get too upset. Moreover, thanks to the butler, they don't have as many problems as they could be. Because of this, they don't get very upset, but simply rejoice that people are no longer in danger. Butler noticed that one girl eats very little and says almost nothing, so they offered to eat something else. It was the wife of the man who called them, Mrs. Becker. But she said that they don't have to worry because she ate so well and tried a lot of things when she cooked it all. After that, they said goodbye, and it was already late, so it was necessary to return home and rest. Guests thanked for the amazing dinner and good company because it was a really pleasant meeting and evening spent. The owner of the house offered to stay at their place for the night because it was snowing and windy outside, and it was also very dark. It would be difficult to get home. He said that he could take them back when the morning comes, because at night they can lose, or something can happen. Of course they thanked for the offer, but there is no way they can leave their house unattended. Besides, there are no guards there, and anyone can go there as long as they are not at home, and forced to go home but were actually grateful for the offer. When the girl was helping the butler, she noticed that he somehow looks strange, and perhaps he is worried about something. He is sweating all over, but he says that everything is fine with him, although there was a feeling that he was not feeling well. When he suddenly became dizzy and began to lose consciousness, the girl did not even have time to understand what happened, because it was too unexpected, and she did not have time to somehow react. He wakes up after a while and realizes he just passed out, although he is already fine, and he just did not expect to be in bed, because the last thing he saw was the owners at the house, and now he wakes up, and there is no one around. He had never been in this room before, and he did not know where everyone else was, so a little panic began. The only thing he remembers is that he suddenly became ill, and then everything went hazy before his eyes. But he had never passed out before, and thought he must have just been overworked and tired, when suddenly he noticed that his mistress was not next to him, and began to get nervous that everything was all right with her, because he did not know where she was. At that moment, he only thought about finding her as soon as possible, because suddenly she was in danger, and again he was not around. He went looking for her so quickly, like he's okay and he's doing well, all because he won't be able to forgive himself if, once again, she's in danger and he's not around. He was most afraid of this and could not allow this. He was after the door in just 1 second and very sharply wanted to run somewhere. But at that moment she entered the room and did not expect that now the butler would run at her. At that moment he also did not see her, and accidentally opened the door strongly, thereby pushing her, and she fell to the floor. Due to the fact that it was all very abrupt and fast, she was a little hurt, and everything happened too suddenly. By this act he frightened her very much, because she did not understand why he was in such a hurry to go somewhere, and thought that something had happened. But when he saw her and made sure that everything was in order with her, he immediately calmed down, and said that she was very scared that she was not around and wanted to run to look for her. And at that time he held her hand, because he was very glad to see her. The girl did not understand why he could not hold out for a single second without her, and was constantly looking for her. At this time she asked how he felt. He replied that he must have been very tired during the day, but now he feels quite well. And she said that from the way he ran, he was definitely fine, ah ha ha ha, and she also hoped that he didn't notice how she cured him with her ability. Meanwhile, it was snowing heavily outside, and it will be very difficult to get home, especially in such darkness, so it will be better to go home in the morning. So they decided to go to the second floor and finally relax after a hard and eventful day. Just after such a situation, the butler needed a good rest and gain strength. But first, they decided to drink some hot tea and warm up a bit, because it was really cold outside. The butler noticed that the girl was a little dirty, and he asked where she was all this time. She said that she wanted to look at the snow, because she had never seen it before. And for her, it was very interesting, because the place where she lived, it was very hot there and there was fire everywhere. And she sees snow for the first time since she lost her memory. For her, there were such sensations and emotions as if for the first time. After that, she decided to find out from him when and where he managed to learn magic, because judging by the stories of Mr. Baker, He repeatedly helped them with her help. He replied that everything was very simple, and he has been doing this for a long time and is interested. After her disappearance, the only thing that helped fix boring days was books. And thus he gradually learned all this, and she realized that now he does not have time to read such books, due to the fact that he constantly needs to be near her. But he said on the contrary, he is very happy that she appeared, and he did this only so that he would not be bored. During the conversation, the girl was very tired and gradually began to fall asleep while sitting on the bed. She didn't even have time to finish her tea and immediately started falling asleep because she had no control over it. This is all because she was very tired for the whole day. In addition, he was busy and tiring. But she was not used to this, and because of this she quickly got tired and fell asleep. The butler realized that she would already be resting and decided to take the cup so that it would not break and hot water would not spill out of it. After that, he helped her to lie down and at the same time did not want to wake her. For him, it was a great opportunity to look at her and admire her appearance, because he really liked her and he admired the way she looks. He wished her good dreams. So far, he did not expect that he would soon be in danger, and people from whom he did not expect anything bad would want to harm him. He heard someone ask him if he came to his senses and feels well, but he did not yet know that this would not please them at all. But on the contrary, they wanted him to feel bad. He decided to open the door to say that he was already fine, only if he knew that opening the door was a bad idea, and in general it was a mistake to visit them, because these people did not wish them well. Gradually, the girl began to wake up because she heard someone talking, and it was for the best, because this was not to be missed, and she would find out who she was really visiting, and who these people were. The owner of the house abruptly opened the door and thereby pushed the butler, and he did not come at all to find out how he was doing. He only wanted to destroy everyone he originally planned. He definitely did not expect this, because this man seemed to him a very hospitable and kind owner of the house. He gradually began to rise, and did not understand what was happening, and why that man was holding that object in his hands. He asked how to understand what happened and why he came to their room. After all, they were already going to rest. That man started asking why the butler felt good after eating their food, which was supposed to make him unable to wake up. Only now, they didn't even imagine that thanks to the girl he now feels good and will be able to protect himself and her. But he didn't fully understand what the man meant. In fact, he only wanted one thing. Getting rid of them is very cruel, or something bad was mixed into the food, and after that the butler and the girl must have passed out. That's why his wife didn't eat anything and refused to taste anything. And all because of the special liquid that they added to food to slowly get rid of the guests, and no one would ever know about them or find them. And after they found out about it, they were just shocked by this. It seemed to them that these people are really kind, and they can be trusted. And the girl asked if this man was paid to do it. After all, it was obvious, and she perfectly understood why this was being done. After everything became clear to everyone, and his plan failed, he decided to tell that he really wanted to get rid of them while they were sleeping. And if he did, they would give him a large amount of money in return. And the butler asked why he decided on such a terrible thing. After all, they did nothing wrong to him. And he decided to explain everything. Since they do not understand it, he thought, why not tell the reasons? After all, people like them, who live in warmth and prosperity, do not need anything and live in pleasure. Do not understand ordinary people who find it difficult to earn money for food and live comfortably. At that moment, the girl realized that between this man and the person who recently came to her house and wanted to do the same, there is something in common. They perform tasks from the same person. Here the man said that he would spare the butler if he gave him the girl and did not interfere with him. Only now he did not understand that he was offering such a thing in vain, and thus only begins to anger them more. Because of this, she is simply ridiculous. Because this man does not know that the girl will be able to protect not only herself thanks to magic, but also the butler, and will easily take revenge on him for everything he wanted to do with them, and for all his words and deeds in which he was so sure. She advised him to shut up, because he is like a little boy who is ready to do everything for the sake of money. Of course, this made him very angry, because in fact it is true. He just fulfills someone's order for a reward. What will happen next is getting more and more interesting, and it is impossible to predict what will happen. After all, Neither the butler nor the girl is going to give up on him, and they want to take revenge on him as soon as possible. And he will answer for everything he wanted to do, because he still does not know who he is dealing with and what he will have to answer for. Even though he saw that they were not going to give up, he tried to continue doing his job. After all, he had no choice, and he had to do something, or at least try. But the butler got ahead of him to protect the girl and prevent this man from harming her, and said that he would regret what he wanted to do, because he does not forgive this and will always protect himself and the girl, because it's his duty, and besides, he is always ready to do everything possible for her safety. And no one dares to hurt her when he is around. Well, at one moment something very unexpected happened. The butler didn't have time to look back and notice how the man was very close, and did not have time to do something. The girl was already awake by the time her help was needed, and the butler was calm. Only now he was badly injured when I defended, and did it to the last, so that she would remain safe and sound, because anything can be expected from this person. He tried his best to restrain him so that he would not bring any danger and damage to her. But this did not stop that man. Apparently, he was promised a huge amount of money for doing this, so he was ready to fight to the last to provide his family with money forever and never need anything again. Only now, is it really worth it to harm people? When suddenly he noticed that something was wrong with his hand, and he couldn't control it, as if something was holding it and wouldn't let go. He still had no idea what the matter was, because he was sure that of them, he was the strongest, and he would succeed anyway. But it was all the work of a girl. She was trying to protect the butler in this way so that that man would not inflict some more damage on him. It was not fair to fight that someone had auxiliary items, and someone didn't. And even so, the butler held himself very well, and protected her to the last, as if his only goal was to keep her safe and sound. This is not surprising because he seems to like her, and because of this, he wants to save and protect her even more, and also to do everything in his power. Meanwhile, the girl started talking, asked if that person knew what she hates the most, and at this time she holds his hand with the help of magic and does not allow him to do anything. No matter how hard he tries to free himself, he will not succeed, and apparently he does not understand this yet. All he can ask is forgive him, but he has no idea how much he angered the girl and her butler. They no longer trust him, and no matter how hard he tries, he will not be able to return the trust. After all, they trusted him, and even stayed at his house, and he did such a terrible thing, and also cooked food for dinner that was supposed to hurt them. This is a very bad deed, which cannot be forgiven. After that, she asked who ordered him to do all this. After all, if he does not say this, he will greatly regret it, and he has only one chance to tell everything. After all, he could not plan and do everything alone. Someone must have pointed him out and made a plan of action. It's obvious, but he didn't want to tell anything, and kept asking for forgiveness for everything he did. And as everyone knows, the girl does not like to repeat twice, and since he ignored her, he himself is to blame. He only said that he did what he was ordered because he had no other choice. So he asked, out of old friendship, to forgive him anyway. But she was not going to forgive such a terrible act, because if a person did something once, he can do it a second time, and such people should not be left a chance for forgiveness, and they must experience the same thing for themselves in order to be willing to do to someone else. Until the last moment he hoped that everything would be fine, and she would not take revenge on him. But he was wrong. Such terrible deeds she does not forgive anyone, and is not going to let him go. Therefore took revenge on him quickly, did not even think about whether to do it or not, and for this she did not blame herself, because if not for him, she would have been in his place, but still she wanted to know whose order he was carrying out, and who benefits from making sure that she is no more. Then she warned his wife, who was sitting nearby in the corner. What if someone finds out about what just happened? The same thing happens to her. The woman was very afraid of her, because she saw how strong she was, and was able to defeat even her husband, who had every chance to complete his task. And she didn't even know what to do now. She hoped that she would not be punished, and she would remain free. It seemed to her that the girl has incredible strength, and it's better not to mess with her, because whoever wants to harm her, it became clear that this person would immediately regret it. And it doesn't cost anything to punish someone for a bad deed. She has always fought for justice and will never allow this, especially in her direction. It was always hard for her to understand. Are people really so cruel and capable of such bad deeds, for which they themselves are then responsible when they are punished? Apparently it is so, and you need to accept it. No matter how much you would like it, and not be afraid to realize this, it made her feel a little uncomfortable because she had to do this to stay safe, and it was difficult for her to understand whether she did the right thing in this situation or not. Perhaps she should have done differently, but in that case she would be in his place, and he would rejoice at his success. Of course she was very sorry that the butler suffered from that man, because he didn't have to try to protect her at all. She remembered what a useful and good person he was. He constantly protected her and did everything to make her feel better and more comfortable. Without such a person it will be very difficult and lonely, because he is the only person with whom she could communicate and spend time together. And from now on this will not happen again. Unfortunately, he suffered very much protecting his mistress. But the situation was hopeless, and no one knew how to do the right thing at the most unexpected moment. And everything turned out as it happened. Needs to accept this and realize that he had no choice. And he did everything possible to save her. And he succeeded. Absolutely everyone noticed how Mr. Becker disappeared, and they were all sure that he was attacked by monsters. And what happened to him? They thought that a person could not harm him like that. Those creatures definitely did it. Among them sat that guy with white hair who once appeared to save the girl at her house, and as if he was trying to hear what others were talking about. People talked about how they are very worried about his wife, and she is probably in a bad condition and misses her husband very much. And they were also glad that the girl managed to escape. For sure they did not know that she could have suffered because of Mr. Becker. Talked about the fact that she must have a very difficult fate, because she has to correct herself with such difficulties. But at some point this guy decided to leave. He acted too mysterious and no one knew who he was until now. After all, he constantly hid his face and did not tell anyone about himself. It is only known that he once wanted to save a girl, and after that he immediately left. The discussion on this topic did not stop for a second. Everyone was just talking about it, because it was the most relevant and interesting topic for the near future. And when he was leaving, he heard that these people consider someone to be traitors, and they got what they deserved. Because of this, he decided to push the person who said this. Because of this, his drink spilled out, and he answered for his words. When he spilled what was in the glass on himself, he became very angry, because his clothes were completely wet, and because of this he was unpleasant. He realized that someone pushed him, just did not know that it was on purpose, and yelled at this guy passing by. Only this man did not yet know that it was better in this situation to just remain silent and not tell him anything. The guy immediately turned around and looked with an evil look at the man who said something after him. Because of this look, the man was a little scared, because he did not expect such a reaction. Due to the fact that he was afraid of him, he immediately apologized and began to make excuses for making a remark to him. Despite the fact that he suffered, he apologized for it, because he was afraid to say something. It looked very funny. Although it is not surprising, because if you see the look of that guy, any person will become afraid to yell at him or make remarks. But still, because this man was offended, he continued to say something and resent what happened. But his wife at that moment told him that it is better to avoid this guy because everyone knows that he is very dangerous. And it is better to apologize even if, for example, in this situation, the man was absolutely right. He understood this very well, but still it was unpleasant for him to be in a wet t-shirt, due to the fact that she spilled a drink on him because of this guy. In the meantime, it will soon become known, and someone will find out about what happened recently between the girl and the man who tried to harm her. Because there is still evidence, and it was easy to understand what happened at that place. Even if someone notices it, it will be difficult to understand who suffered and who was involved in this. Only now no one was ready to see this. After all, if everyone knew what really happened and who is really to blame, everyone will be very surprised if they find out. And this woman has no idea what she's about to see with her own eyes. She couldn't even imagine such a thing, and she was very scared to be in that place. And if she knew what she would see, she would never have gone this way, because it is impossible to forget. After a while there was a guy in that place who constantly hid his face. He began to go there, and did not even suspect how much he could see there. It was very dark around, and it was hard to see anything. In addition, there was no one there, and there was not a very pleasant atmosphere. I always wanted to get out of there as soon as possible, because it was very unpleasant to be there. The guy began to analyze everything he sees and thought about who could be here, and what actually happened. After some time, he realized that someone wanted to harm the girl, and since footprints were left here, someone was in a great hurry to complete their task. He knew for sure that if she managed to escape several times and protect herself, it is not known how long she will be able to protect herself, and what will happen next, because a person who needs it will never back down and will achieve his goal in any way, even if it takes a long time. So he has to protect her and keep her safe, even if she doesn't suspect that he is constantly monitoring it and always ready to help.